Welcome, dear children. Today we are going to read about poem number 3, A Tiger in the Zoo, from the book First Flight. George Leslie Norris was a prize winning Welsh poet and a short story writer as well. He is considered as most important Welsh writers of the post-war period, and his literary works have won many prizes. His famous works are Finding Gold, The Loud Winter, Phoenix Living Poets series like Ransoms, and etc. The one that you have in your course is A Tiger in the Zoo. Now, before we begin about the discussion of the poem, children, I just want you all to close your eyes for a minute and think about this pandemic situation in India and the days of lockdown during which you were quite literally locked inside the house and were not allowed to go outside at all. Even when the lockdown gets over, you still have got restrictions as you cannot move out freely, you cannot join the schools offline, and you have to restrict yourself on certain other activities as well. Now, when you have pondered over this phase, you being a human being who is way more brilliant and smart than any animal, and you have got the ability to understand every situation very well, still might have sometimes felt really bad about the situation of yourself. So, on that note, I begin with this poem, A Tiger in the Zoo. This poem contrasts a tiger in the zoo with the tiger in its natural habitat. The poem moves freely from the zoo to the jungle and back again to the zoo. So, in order to understand this poem, you need to shift your mind as well from zoo to its natural habitat, jungle. Now, tiger today is an endangered species, we all know about it. And for thousands of years, the kings, the hunters, and the poachers have been killing this kingly beast for its skin and bones. And then there are ringmasters using tigers as showpieces. And in a cage, the tiger keeps moving restlessly but regally. His rage is quiet and he feels helpless. And this helpless is shown in the poem by the poet Leslie Norris to give this understanding to the human beings that how for our pleasure we succumb the lives of animals like a tiger, who otherwise is known as one of the dangerous animals and has got the kingly personality. This poem shows the agony and helplessness of a tiger who has been caged and who otherwise is actually a free animal to roam around in jungle terrorizing others. Unlike other animals, those who are cute and those who are domestic, those who are kept as pet, this particular animal is a one which is considered dangerous and fearful, and an animal who is actually known and recognized for his beastly instincts is kept inside a cage by human beings in order to get some pleasure or money out of their existence. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage on pad of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. Now, these 8 lines that I have read for you is moving from zoo to the natural habitat of this tiger, which is jungle or a forest. Now this tiger is not being able to move its steps freely inside the cage. So he's just taking small little steps, small baby steps inside the cage, because he's actually not happy and free inside, one. And second thing, that he's actually disturbed with the gaze of the visitors around. This king of the forest is treated harshly as a prisoner, and he cannot break the iron bars of the cage. He can only walk a few steps inside the cage, helplessly, though he boils with rage within. Rage is the anger. He is fearful by nature, and he still is, but he knows how to succumb his anger inside the cage, like his freedom, like his liberty, which has been controlled by someone else, a human being. And on the other hand, the tiger does, as a free beast in the forest, he hides in some bush or some grass near the water hole where a fat deer would come over for water, and hence he could catch it as a prey. But this tiger boils with anger, but he cannot express it. It cannot express its anger because it is that controlled. Inside the cage, he itself understands that he does not have any command over anything. He is just helpless. And before we move on, I would want you all to notice this he over here, and which is why I also have been calling this tiger he, which clearly shows that he stalks in his vivid stripes, is the example of personification over here. This tiger has been given the qualities, has been referred as with the qualities of human beings. And about the other figures of speech we'll talk at the end of the poem. These first four lines refer to the tiger inside the cage. Inside the cage. And these four lines are when probably the same tiger would have been in the forest, what actions would have kept him busy and what freedom he would have been enjoying. He would have been waiting to catch a deer as a prey, hunt a deer, hide himself behind the grass and wait for the moment where he could have caught this deer as his prey. But contrary to what it is born with, the quality of hunting, the anger and everything, the personality of the tiger, the traits of a tiger are all succumbed inside this cage, because he does not have any freedom over here. Neither can he walk properly inside the cage because the cage is small. But the cage does not literally mean the cage of iron bars only. It is actually the oppression of his freedom altogether. Now these bright stripes here, the poet has also taken the liberty to describe the personality and the physical appearance of this tiger with certain literary devices. And here we have the metaphor where it is calling the paths of velvet quiet, and which is also referring to the paws of the tiger. Also the bright yellow stripes. I am sure every one of you must have seen a tiger, if not live or in real life, then at least in movies or in some videos. So all of you are already aware of how a tiger actually looked like. And then here we have got the oxymoron, which means the opposite adjectives coming together in order to give it a uh, with to give a flow of the expression as per the poem. And here quiet rage, now these are two opposite words. This quiet is this quiet, the quiet of keeping silent. It is actually, this tiger also understands that his freedom is now limited inside the bars of the cage, and he cannot move out even if he shows his anger. So he also has learned to how keep his anger into control and suppresses its expressions. Is not even roaring high, it is just taking small steps inside the cage because it actually is disturbed with the gaze of the coming of the visitors over there. Then this is actually where he would be lurking in shadows, as I said, in behind the grass, and enjoying the liberty at the most, waiting for a fat deer to come over and have a great meal. Okay. And then again, the poet has taken this movement from, in the first four lines, moving from the zoo to the forest, the natural habitat. And these four lines are also showing the actual existence of the tiger and actual freedom of the tiger. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. Terrorizing, please pay importance to this word terrorizing here, because that is what a tiger can do at its best. Terrorize. Just imagine, children, if you see or encounter a tiger in that way roaring in front of you, how would you feel? Of course, we all would be scared if we see, a tiger close to us, trying to jump on us, trying to kill us, and all that fear. We may run, we may even faint, anything may happen. So that is what this sort of impression is what we all have of a tiger inside our heads. But this particular tiger, who is otherwise not free, is not showing any signs of terror, anger, or anything like that. What he would have been doing otherwise? He should be snarling around. Now, this snarling is what? This is, as I say, onomatopoeia, the device of sound words that are showing some sounds. Now, a dense forest is, of course, the ideal habitat for the tiger, the natural habitat for the tiger. And the tiger has this frightening long teeth and deadly claws. See, you can see in the image also, the claws and the teeth of tiger are actually used as the weapon of attack and defense for itself as well. Okay, and this expression of the tiger and the way it roars and the way it tries to catch upon its prey, it itself is enough and sufficient to terrorize the entire village. Okay, one roar is sufficient, and that is what actually its natural instincts are about. But the last four lines again, the next four lines are again jumping and moving from zoo first to the natural habitat, and from natural habitat the poet has again taken the reader to the cage where the tiger is there inside. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Now, what is he doing? He is actually locked inside this cell or the cage, okay, and his strength behind the bar. So he is not just locked, he is not just locked physically. Of course, he is locked there physically, but in that lock, inside that lock, along with his physical appearance, lies all the natural traits of a tiger that we have just discussed. Okay, his strength, his anger, his power, his throw, his roar, everything that he's, born with. And this all along with the tiger are behind this concrete cell. Even the power of the tiger is locked behind the bars. Stalking the length of his cage. Why stalking? Because he does not have much space to move. So he's only taking the round, and he's trying to walk just beside the length of this cage, and that is all the space he has got in his life inside the cage. That is all. The only freedom he has got is to move inside the cage, roar inside the cage, and that too in a suppressed way, because he has learnt to control his anger as well. He's not even showing his rage to the visitors, but is only ignoring the visitors. He's not at all interested in looking at them, showing them his creative talent and anything of that sort. Okay, so all those natural instincts, the things that come to a tiger more naturally, are all suppressed, and he does not show any of those brilliant signs or the traits or the characteristics that he does otherwise when he is outside the cage or in his natural habitat. And at night, what he does, he hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. What is he doing inside the cage? He's listening to the voice. He's hearing some voice of the patrolling cars, the cars that are come out to guard the city or the area around of the forest or wherever the cage is. Okay, and he, as I said, is personified. He, the tiger, is hearing all those noises, but what is he doing? What is he busy with? He's busy in staring the stars, the brilliant stars, with his brilliant eyes. Now there is this term repeated, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, I'll emphasize a bit on it. He stares with his brilliant eyes because he by nature has got this vivid personality and is sharp in nature and is full of fierce and throw and power and anger, as we have just talked about, are all set in his eyes. Okay, and with all those traits inside his eyes, with those vivid and sharp eyes, with what? With actually the lost in wonder. He is somewhere lost in his own head, in his thought, because he understands, he knows, the tiger itself knows that he's been locked inside somewhere. He does not have the freedom to move out. The only option he has got at night is to look up at the stars. Okay, and children, I'm sure you might have heard of the proverb, a ray of hope. Okay, so, and also whenever you pray, it is quite natural that comes to us, it naturally comes to us. When we are praying to God, there are two gestures of our body which are quite natural and common, okay, irrespective of the way you worship. It is either you look up towards the sky, or it is either you bend your head down, okay, a little bit while you are praying. So this tiger is also perhaps with a hope in his eyes, looking upwards towards the sky and trying to match up to the liberty of those stars in the sky and towards his own condition inside the cage. Okay, and then thinking and wondering of his own situation, that a night when he would have been free, what else were the options that we would have been doing. Okay, of course not locked inside the cage in that condition. Okay, so there is this hope and there is this sign of losing himself in wonder in that first brilliant eyes, and then of course the stars, the bright stars, we all understand, gives us hope, gives us smile. Stars are always beautiful at night. They are the ones, those who twinkle, and with all that brightness, he is trying to collect that inside himself. Okay, and maybe who knows, the poet also leaves certain things on us, on the readers to understand and perceive on its own. And the tiger is also waiting for a ray of hope and looking forward for the silver lining that may appear someday to him, that he would be outside this cage. So this entire poem is actually the about the agony and the helplessness of a caged tiger, which otherwise is actually a free, and not just a free animal, free in different ways, free in terrorizing others, including human beings. Okay, and this particular tiger is in trouble inside the zoo. He has been robbed of his freedom of movement. In the cage, he simply walks restlessly in silent anger. And in the forest, he would have prowl at night, pursues his prey, growls, strikes terror with his claws, teeth, and roar. But here, he does nothing. It is just wretched in its cage, and his power is confined behind the bars. He is locked in a small cage where he is devoid of freedom. And he is restless and angry, yet he does not show his anger. And also, children, I would want you all to pay attention that the poet here also is bringing towards the reader a very important message, okay, that the poet is trying to convey to us that it is cruel to keep the wild animals in small enclosures of the zoo, away from their natural habitat, where they feel angry, they feel helpless, they feel unhappy, and they feel homeless, because this home does not belong to them. So this is why the tiger here is not happy with the condition, okay, because otherwise his practices would have been different. And this mighty tiger would have roamed around freely in his natural habitat, okay. And these last two lines are actually intensifying the feeling of helplessness that he feels inside the cage. So these were the lines from the poem A Tiger in the Zoo, which is a contrast between his life inside the cage and inside the jungle or a forest in its natural habitat. Now quickly coming to the figures of speech. One, personification, the tiger is personified, and then in the first four lines itself we have this metaphor, as I said, the pads of velvet quiet, where the pads actually is the paws of the tiger, okay, the paws which are compared with the velvet, which is a fabric and has a smooth texture, soft and smooth texture. Quiet rage, as I already told you, is an oxymoron where the opposite adjectives have been put together. Then in this we have got should and shadow, which is the alliteration, example of alliteration. And children, sliding through long grass near the water hole where the plumped deer pass. This entire is actually the creation of imagery over here, and imagery by now you should be able to understand on its own in this standard, that here the sort of scene is created in order to have this better clarity of the situation, and where the poet has given the readers a view to imagine, okay, and create an image. So that is why perhaps. And then we have got the sound word, as I told you, onomatopoeia, This I already have told you, and we also have got consonants in this, bearing his white fangs, his claws. Now, how consonants is there? The repetition of the consonant S, okay, with different pronunciation and sound vibration. Also, in this entire poem, the tiger is being personified, and here behind bars, this also is the example of alliteration. So you have got personification, alliteration, consonance, metaphor, and of course the oxymoron and onomatopoeia. And children, there are also the lines of enjambment over here, where one particular verse is being stretched, the same idea is being stretched without any punctuation. Okay, so on that note, I end the poem. I hope you all have understood. Thank you.